Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Eric. What I want to do is, if you guys can read this here, I did a video response to this guy's question, and then this right here, this statement was left on that video, like in the comments. So what I want to do is, I want to talk about what this guy is talking about here, and I'm going to give 3 different examples of a bed edger, mulch delivery, and tree service. And hopefully it can kind of explain, you know, uh, just give insight and advice on where you should be coming from. So a lot of times when you're starting out, you are trying to find all the ways to cut costs and you do everything yourself. And it's almost like you're kind of like a nickel and dimer. You have a penny in your eye and you can't see the dollar because the penny's in your eye type of. I don't know if you've ever heard a saying like that. But so what I did, and perfect example is with this bed edger. What I used to do was I would okay, so in this video, I guess I just need to back up and say in this video I talk about that lots of different stuff. I'd recommend checking it out. It's called something like How to Compete in a Very Competitive Market. One of the things I talk about is having equipment that's top of the line, and how somebody that's just doing this part-time wants to make a little bit more than they make at a job, and but they don't have good equipment. So how you compete is by having good equipment, and then you can compete. Anyways, well, let me get into my examples. Actually, I'm going to, just because of what I just said, I'm going to start with the tree service one. So I have one of my neighbors whose sons is a tree climber, and he works for a company that does a lot of tree service for utility companies. And on the weekends and stuff like that, when he has free time, he'll all go out and do tree jobs for people. And so basically, he has no overhead, and he just cuts trees down and leaves them there, and then people have to dispose of them. So he can technically come in super cheap, lowball people, and make tons of money because he doesn't have any costs, pretty much. I'm not I'm not here to talk about that's a good strategy or bad strategy. I'm just saying that's what he does. And that's exactly what I'm talking about and how you compete with people like that. So I'm going to give you a specific way of how you compete for that. So that guy knows what he's doing. He's good, and he doesn't have any equipment, but he can climb a tree, and he has chainsaws and stuff like that. So he can go up in that tree, and when he works for the tree service he works for, he makes 20 to 25 bucks an hour, right in there, depending on if you want to throw in benefits or not. And when he's working for himself, he definitely wants to make more than $20 or $25 an hour, but he might not have the confidence to charge $100 an hour or $75 an hour. Which is what, that would be on the that's just like a on the, I don't want to say the low end, but on the, you shouldn't be bidding hourly tree stuff. You should just be bidding it per job and planning on making way more than like an hourly rate type of a deal. But doesn't have the confidence to do that, and he thinks, well, if I just make $40 an hour, that's fine. So he bid this huge freaking tree at, I think he wanted like 2,000. I think it was $2,000 for this tree, which was like, basically he couldn't do it for any less than that. This tree would have taken him probably 2 days if he had a helper. Like 2 solid days with a helper, and he wouldn't even have gotten it all taken down. Well, I just happened to be dinking around, and because this guy lives in my neighborhood, I went over there and I see this huge crane up in the air. Or actually what it was, I heard chainsaws going. And I saw this crane, and it was a tree company that came in, and they couldn't have gotten started any earlier than 9 o'clock because of, how much, or 8 o'clock because of how noisy things were. Basically, they came in, they had one climber, they had a guy that had whatever I just called it, a crane, and then they had 3 guys, like groundsman type guys, right? Well, they did that job in under 3 hours, not including the stump, but they had it cut all the way down to the ground in 3 hours. Now, somebody that's just starting out would say, well, I don't want to spend the time, or I don't want to spend the money on a crane. I don't want to spend the money on having a dump trailer there. I don't want to spend the money on having all the extra employees there. But they might have bid that job at $1,700 or $1,800. But because they spent $500 on a crane, which I don't know how much they spent on a crane, but I'm sure the average price is basically like $100 an hour, and there's a trip charge. So he was only there for 3 hours. This is the main thing. So he was there for 3 hours. So let's just say he charged $5. The crane guy made $500 for working from leaving his shop at 7 in the morning and was done by 11:30. Back to his shop at 11:30. So the crane guy made $500. They bid the job at, let's just say, $1,800. So now they've got $1,200 in expenses, and they didn't even have the equipment, but they at least had the business sense, or the knowing that it was going to be way too big a job and way too expensive. They didn't get some kind of equipment in there to do the work, because otherwise the labor would have just been ridiculous on it. And then, so they had, let's just say they had 4 laborers there, 3 groundsmen, and 1 tree climber. So that's 4 people times 3 hours, which would be 4, 8, 12. They've got 12 hours into that job, but 12 man hours. So if they were going to have to charge, if they wanted $100 an hour, that'd be, what is that? Is that $1,200? So you get what I'm saying? Now, that's just one example, and I hope that kind of makes sense. Leverage the machinery. Your most expensive cost is labor. Now, if they wouldn't have used that crane for $600, there is no way they could have done that job for $1,800, because if they're paying 4 guys, let's just say an average of $20 an hour, just for easy numbers' sake, that would be, per hour, they would be at, what is 4 times 20? 40, 80, 160. So they'd be at $160 per hour. And then that job, it already took them, with the crane, it took them 3 hours. So that would be 160 times 3. Let me do the math on that. That's $480, but that was with the crane. So you minus what the crane, the work that the crane did, and it would have been, like, literally, I mean, this tree was huge, massive. You couldn't have done it without machinery. But I'm just saying, if you didn't have the crane and you were going to do it all by hand, that would have, I mean, it would have been over $2,000. It would have been a day, an easy day for 4 people to be there. So I'm just going to say 10 hours. 10 hours times 1. 10 hours times 160 equals $1,600. So that was a scenario, which way makes more sense? You made $1,600 that day, or you could make however much money it was, and you're done by 11, 10, 11 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're on to the next one. And and a lot of times what business owners will say, and I absolutely love this mindset, I really believe in it a lot, is the easiest thing that you can do is say, oh, I can't afford it, or oh, I can't do that, or oh, that's too hard, or just it's an easy out, and it lets your mind shut off and say, see, I'm right, I don't have to do it. But if you think about it like, that's a huge treat, how can I do that affordably? Then you can say, you don't have to say, oh, I can't afford a crane. You say, how can I get a guy in here and create a relationship with a guy that has a crane to make a win-win to get this job done? And so that's one example, and that example doesn't even cost you as an owner money as far as a physical investment and paying insurance on the equipment and owning the equipment. You just have to be able to have contacts and people to call, so that when you're bidding something like that, you just have something like that. So I think that's probably the best example of what I want to go at, but I wanted to give you a couple others here. So as far as like a mulch delivery goes, like let's just say you had a commercial contract and they wanted 100 yards of mulch. Well, and I'm not trying to belittle you here, but basically I just want you to think about it. Knowing that labor is your most expensive, pretty much your most expensive expense, I don't even know, in your business is going to be like payroll. So like if you have a pickup truck that can do 2 yards of mulch, and it takes an hour to do the delivery, total round trip. So you're paying a guy $15 an hour to go back and forth with a pickup truck for 2 yards of mulch at a time, and you need 100 yards, and it takes an hour. What would that be? It'd take you 50 hours to deliver 100 yards of mulch if I'm thinking this up in my head right. So if you're gonna 50 hours, and obviously you get what I'm doing here, but I just want to know what it is. So 50 hours times $15 an hour equals $750. Now you couldn't do that because you couldn't get anything done, and you have to be able to leverage that time. So what do? You either pay, like a landscape supply company to deliver it for you, or you either have equipment like myself. I have an end dump, so I can do, I don't even know what they could do because I usually haul tonnage, which is way under the yardage, how much yards you can use. But I think they can, 40 yards is probably, let's just say it was 50, because that would just make it super easy, but I don't think it can haul 50, the one that I have. Well, let's just say you could, and it takes an hour. So now you've got that overhead of the truck and the trailer, which is super expensive, but if you have the truck and trailer, you're using it for more than just that one job. And now your overhead is 2 hours of work at, let's say it takes more knowledge to drive a tractor trailer, so you're at 20, so let's just say it's $20 an hour, 2 hours, so it's cost $40 in labor versus 750. Now, you see where I'm going with this. You're leveraging your expenses. All that stuff costs more, but when you start doing this, you give an avalanche of extra income that you're finding, so that you can then not spend it on fancy things for yourself, but you keep on reinvesting that into your business. And I have a video on that about my kids, where they used to go to or when they go to parades and stuff, they used to eat their candy before they could get all the candy. And so what I'm saying is don't spend your money and bite yourself in the foot. Keep your money and keep it moving and keep on reinvesting it so that you can start having more and more profitable pieces of equipment that makes your labor cost, that drives your labor costs down, so that you will be more profitable. I got one more example for you, and it's just about a bed edger. Now this is just like a super easy thing, cheap example, and I'm talking about the pennies in your eyes before, so you can't see the dollars right out in front of you. Because this is what I used to do, and I didn't know how to use a bed edger. I didn't know, how efficient they were or anything. But what ended up happening was I wanted to do the landscaping all the way around my house. And so I didn't feel like hiring any of my employees to help me with the job. And they're working so many hours a week anyways that when they have off, it's like I don't want to burn them out. I value their time, and I just want them to relax so they're happy to come back in on Monday type of deal. So anyways, I said, I'm going to go out and rent a bed edger so I don't have to pay for labor. So I did, and I did it all myself. The bed edger cost $40, and to do around my house with 2 guys and myself using like a pickaxe and shovels and crap like that, it would have been an all-day job. And we would have been beat, and we would have been worn out, and it would have just sucked. And the edging might have not been all the way down, or would have been too far up or down or whatever. You get what I'm saying? It wouldn't have been done the right way. Well, it would have been, but it just would have taken a lot longer to do. Now, I got this bed edger. I had a 4-hour, I think it was 4 hours for $40. Well, I did the whole freaking around my house. I had it all laid out in spray paint and stuff. I followed the line, and it took me literally a half an hour to do the whole thing. And I just drove back up there, replaced it, and then we ended up buying one at an auction for like $400. Maybe it was only $200. Now, it costs money, but I would have had 3 guys out there all day to not make nearly as much money as just having that machine. And the biggest thing about this is it's not only the money that you save in labor, but it's the money that you save in being able to free up your guys, free up your time to be able to go out and get more work done in a day. Because there's only a certain amount of time in a day that you can actually work. So now what you're doing is you're leveraging your time with your equipment, and then you're able to get more stuff done so you can make more money in a day. So I hope that was good information for you guys. I'd really love to hear comments from you guys. And yeah, get to work.